Hey, 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 happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch. Brought to you by, obviously enough, gaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Thursday, May 7th, 2026. This is a live stream 1320. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out it's super casual around here. We just hang out talking about the latest in tabletop role-playing game news, and then I will usually pontificate about a topic, which is what we are doing tonight, because we're going to discuss what makes a role-playing game part of the new SR. Yes, the new school renaissance. We'll get to that in just a bit, but of course, we always dive on into the news first. Now, of course, when you're not watching videos here on the channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. I should also mention, anytime you're watching one of the live streams that I'm talking about, tabletop role-playing game news, if you do want to learn more about whatever I'm talking about, that news story is already up on thegaminggang.com. So keep that in mind. And of course, because this is a live stream, there is chat available. Now, you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part in chat. But if you check off that box and you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my absolute best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Mark Hawkswell. The Madman is back with us. He is one of our chat moderators. Semper Buffo's here, as is Danny Gable. Troy Cornelson's making an early run into chat. Troy tends to hit us up late in the show. He is here bright and early this time around. We also have Kevin King and Kevin R. Smith coming in back to back. Harvey Chuckles is also with us, as is Retired on a Bike. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D lurking in the shadows as our other chat moderator, she of the glittery banhammer. So it looks like chat is rocking and rolling as we see Michael Berry also popping on in. So got plenty of news tonight. I've got some things that are going on as well that I'm going to talk about. And then, of course, we will be jumping on into tonight's topic. But first, of course, we do have the news. So let's jump on in, because the player's guide for the second edition of Grim Hollow is now in stores. I've got the latest from Ghostfire Gaming. Etheris needs your bravery and your soul. Warring nations ravaged by evil magic and corrupt leaders rest on the edge of doom. With the gods dead, other beings have filled the void, using their powers to subjugate the innocent and tempt the weak. Can those who call themselves heroes find a way to use the tools of both light and dark to survive? The Grim Hollow Player's Guide offers players and game masters new rules for running a campaign of dark fantasy danger and heroic resilience in the face of heart-stopping evil. All compatible with the 24th edition of Dungeons and Dragons. This book contains heaps of new rules content, including a new class, the Monster Hunter, that uses both wits and weapons to defeat the horrific monsters of Etheris. 3 new subclasses for each class, plus 4 Monster Hunter subclasses, many new species, and Ghostfire Gaming's heritage system, which let you build your character to capture your exact vision. There are transformations which see characters take on the traits and flaws of the monsters they fight, plus new feats, spells, advanced equipment, and so much more. All of this and further horrors await you within the Grim Hollow Player's Guide. The 276-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $60. If you want to score just the PDF, you can do so for $29.99. And of course, the Game Master's Guide is also available at the same time. I gotta say, I like the artwork to this. You know, funny enough, Ghostfire Gaming was exhibiting at Gamehole Con, and I stopped by a couple of times because I just wanted to drop off a card, say hello, because they've got quite a bit of content out there. And every time I stopped by, the person I needed to talk to wasn't there. I was like, damn it. So I finally was like, okay, I'll tell you what. Here's my card. Make sure they get it. Maybe they've heard of the outlet. Maybe they haven't. And I never heard anything. Oh, well, you know what to tell you. Moving right along, I do see that the Niche Nook and Miss Sarah D are both with us tonight. Very nice. And then I see Follow Gun Ojedade. I don't even know. I'm sure I'm misreading it somehow. It's going to be something so super obvious, and I am just not catching it. But they are with us as well tonight. Thanks for joining us. Also in stores right now from Mongoose Publishing is Paranoia, the powers that be. Trust no one. Here's the lowdown. Troubleshooters are more than just dangerous twits who tend to accidentally destroy more than they intended to destroy. They're also unwitting and often witless pawns in the power struggles of anyone who has authority, wealth, or very lax morals. Are rivals getting too full of themselves? Make up a reason to send over a troubleshooter team, and enough things tend to die or explode that those rivals are back to square one and finding their own troubleshooting teams to send over for payback. Is this abusing the purpose of troubleshooting? Yes, but no one cares. Except for the GM, because in this game, abusing power is their bread and butter. Power that be trust no one is a big supplement going into details on all 8 service groups and all 13 secret societies, including the return of the Illuminati. Well, there is some lore details included, such as possible origins in different departments/cells. Most of this book is dedicated to making troubleshooters' lives more interesting. A specific section in each write-up, how they mess with troubleshooters, with scenes to drop into any mission so players stay on their toes, including flimsy excuses for what triggered those scene drops so GMs can claim to be nice. It's just one of the items you'll find here, as well as weird mini games for more scenes, such as a B3 taste test or sticking forks into outlets to see if they have power. I thought that's what you are supposed to do. Huh. Surprised. So it is Balogun. Jeez. I don't know how I was supposed to figure that one out. We also have different service group departments and secret society cells that can pull troubleshooters in different directions. leaders and those who want to usurp those leaders, so the troubleshooters can get caught in a power struggle. More favors the players can buy with Moxie, so players have more ways to get each other in trouble, including printable but small handouts to remind players of what kind of favors are available. Multiple mission prompts, so GMs can quickly and more maliciously create their own missions for troubleshooters to screw up. Everyone knows someone behind the curtain is always pulling the troubleshooter's strings. Buy this book to have more string pullers than the players know what to deal with. The 128-page hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $49.99. If you want to grab just the PDF alone, you can do so over at Drive-Thru RPG for $29.99. Always good to see new Paranoia releases hitting either in print or PDF. I know the PDF for this has been out for a bit, but now the print edition has arrived. Cooperative Waffles and Tessie Trekkie, as well as W Forge, are all with us tonight. Welcome. All right, next up, I have a money-saving offer that is going to blow everybody away. Okay, maybe not everyone, but the Delta Green role-playing game is the focus of an awesome bundle from Arc Publishing and Fanatical. I've got the deets on the deal. Venture into the tense, shadowy, and horror-filled world of Delta Green, the highly acclaimed, multiple award-winning tabletop role-playing game from the awesome Arc Publishing. Confront unspeakable horrors that defy all reason. This horrendously good collection brings you an expansive library of missions, source books, and tools for one of the most acclaimed modern cosmic horror role-playing games. Tier 1 gives you the perfect briefing with essential tools to learn the system, run your first game, and encounter the unnatural horrors lurking beneath everyday America. Tier 2 expands upon the field of operations with the core rulebooks, alongside a wide variety of missions that unravel disturbing cases and complex threats, whilst you try to handle the psychological toil. The third tier peels back the curtain to reveal the true horrors you have to battle with. Unlock all 34 products packed with campaigns, source books, and digital resources to dive deep down the rabbit hole of the conspiracy and warp your game night. In Delta Green, knowledge is dangerous, sanity is fragile, and survival is never guaranteed. Snap up your copy today and find out if you'll survive. Now, you can jump aboard for as little as a single solitary dollar. If you want to go all in to score all 34 PDFs, which to my eye looks as if it is all of the content for Delta Green since the latest edition arrived on the scene, you can get that for $14.99. For less than the price of the Operatives Handbook. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the Agent's Handbook, not Operatives Handbook. $14.99 gets you essentially all of Delta Green. Wow. So, I will point out, I am an affiliate of Fanatical. So if you are interested in this bundle, before you jump aboard it, please head over to thegaminggang.com. There is a news piece. There is a link. You click on the Delta Green link, I will get a percentage of that sale. It won't cost you anything more, but it will definitely help me out. So thank you very much. But I'm really, really impressed by this. I have a lot of this. Otherwise, I would maybe consider jumping on board. but I have the major releases up through, I want to say it is God's Teeth. So after that, everything that's come out has either been PDF only or soft cover in PDF. But man, what an excellent bundle this is. Got some more money-saving deals, or I should say one more money-saving deal. But I see that Taco Loco is with us in chat. Welcome aboard. So let's talk about the Humble Bundle that's available. It is from Magpie Games. They've teamed up to offer physical role-playing game books. I've got the skinny on the savings. Gather your friends and save the world. Got a table at home that's looking a little empty? Why not fill it with stacks of fantastic role-playing books, available as physical copies in this bundle from Magpie Games? Get a group together and play through fan-favorite plot lines like The Play's the Thing, an adventure that lets you retell and remix Shakespeare's greatest works. Or dive into Our Last Best Hope, which sets high-octane thrills within end-of-the-world plots like Sunshine and Armageddon. Grow some wings and solve the mysteries of a world in peril in Epilion, a dragon epic. This bundle includes physical copies and expansions for all these great adventures. So grab them now at a price of your choosing. Well, as long as you as long as you choose something that is $39 or more, and you will actually support the ACLU with your purchase. So you can score all 5 books, which are part of this offer. There's only one level. Although when you go over to Humble Bundle, you'll see there are different donations you can make, but all of them score you the 5 books. So you're looking at a minimum donation of $39, gets you all 5 physical books. And these savings do run through May 28th. So it looks like Cooperative Waffles is having a rough day. I've had a weird day too. Maybe it's just the day. I wouldn't say it's been rough, but it has been kind of aggravating. I'm going to talk a little bit about that when I wrap up the news. But I wonder if folks out there will also say, yeah, you know what, Jeff, that is aggravating. Be like, All right, let's move on to our last news piece. Ham and Egg Publishing is in the midst of a successful backer kit run to fund a couple of horror adventures for Shadow Dark. And here's what I know about a dark double feature. Ham and Eggs Publishing joins forces with the prolific role-playing game writer Levi Combs to bring you a dark double feature designed for use with the Shadow Dark role-playing game. 2 adventures, 2 flavors of horror, 1 unforgettable campaign. If Of a Harmonious Nature was written to be the best parts of an A24 film in the Hammer horror style, then Nothing Left to Lose is Saw in H.H. Holmes's Murder Castle. This is horror with range, slow dread and frenzied ritual on one side, desperate survival in absolute darkness on the other. So let's talk about Of a Harmonious Nature. The fog-shrouded mountain town of Skogstrand is under the grip of an ancient entity known as Praestervrim. It slips into minds and twists them into frenzied, ritualistic terror. The town has already begun to fall, and it will not stop until its will is fulfilled. As you arrive, something is clearly wrong. Strange rites spread through the streets, and the festival of Scythperchten looms only days away. Written by John McGuire and Levi Combs, with cover by Sally Cantarino, Of a Harmonious Nature is a full-length adventure for 4 to 6 characters, levels 3 to 5. A hardcover clocking in at approximately 80 pages. It will drag you through fanaticism, folk horror, and the slow corruption of a community that has already chosen its side. Will you discover the true reckoning that has set its sights on the festival, or will you too become a part of a harmonious nature? And then there's Nothing to Lose. Set free by your captor after a failed rescue mission, you are reunited with your friends, your gear, and a way out. The only problem is, it isn't the same way you came in. The only thing standing between you and freedom is the dark and whatever is lurking in its shadows. Also written by John McGuire and Levi Combs, with a cover by Charles Ferguson Avery, Nothing Left to Lose is a 3-level dungeon crawl for 4 to 6 characters, levels 3 to 5. A 48-page zine built on momentum, pressure, and the specific terror of a clock you can't see. Time is not on your side, because if the torchlight fades to black, you'll learn that freedom really is just another word for nothing left to lose. A little nod to Janis Joplin there, eh? Well, why didn't this switch over to the other news piece? What the hell's going on? Here, I'm reading the news piece, and it's like, hey, still showing the other bundle. So hang on. Well, there's a video. There's a little video. It's only about a minute in length. But let's take a peek at what this actually looks like, because it did catch my eye, and I thought it looked pretty cool. That's why I'm sharing the news. I think by now, you know, if something doesn't interest me, it's not going to get a news piece, either here or on the website. There is some other news I will mention when we're finished with this, but I don't really have info about it, but I do want to share it. I did post a little news piece with the announcement over on the website, but we've got all of one image of the item and really not much information. But okay, you've had an opportunity to take a peek at the dark double feature here. So why don't we give a look at the backer kit video?
Ahoy! I'm John Hambone McGuire from Fanatical Publishing, and I'm here on Backer Kit with Of a Harmonious Nature and Nothing Left to Lose. 2 great flavors of horror for one amazing system. These adventures were designed for use with Shadow Dark RPG. Now, it's been said there's more to fear in the night than the dark, and I know a thing or two about it. So we're intending to bring you 2 completely different adventures that are very complementary to each other. Of a Harmonious Nature, which is all the best parts of an A24 movie seen through the lens of Hammer Horror. And then we have Nothing Left to Lose, which is like Saw, but an H.H. Holmes murder castle, if this murder castle was a very, very dark dungeon. So we hope you check out these projects, because if there's truly more to fear in the night than the dark, if you go looking in the Shadow Dark, you're certainly going to find it.
Oh, all righty. Like I said, it's a pretty short video. I don't even think it clocked in at a minute. But this crowdfunding project is fully funded. If you want to reserve the hardcovers, you can do so for a $50 pledge. If you want to go soft cover, now, of course, these do include PDFs. You can do so with a $25 pledge. If you just want PDFs, then you can do that for a $12 pledge through May 22nd. Expected fulfillment, pretty quick turnaround on this. The shipping is expected to begin in early December. So hopefully you would have these in your hot, grimy hands prior to the holidays. So very cool. Very nice. Very nice. So that is it for the tabletop role-playing game news tonight, at least that segment. I see our buddy Agile Monk is with us. I see Peaceful Porcupine has also joined the festivities, so welcome to you both. So the other news piece I was going to mention is, strangely enough, so this flew under my radar. I didn't see this. This is from like 2 days ago. Goodman Games announced that they are going to be producing Elric of Melnibone content for 5e and Dungeon Crawl Classics. So I'm guessing we're looking at kind of like the Lankmar was with Fritz Leiber with his estate. But today, Freely Publishing announced an Elric role-playing game built on Dragonbane mechanics. Like, wait, what? Kind of reminds me a little bit of when Savage Worlds was releasing Fafhrd and Grey Mouser content for Savage Worlds. And then Dungeon Crawl Classics started releasing Lankmar stuff. I was like, okay, so wait, who's got the license here? What's going on? And I'm sure the Elric stories are not in the public domain. I know that for a fact. So I'm like, what in the hell's going on? So yeah, so I shared a news piece about the announcement for Legends of Stormbringer is what it's going to be called. And interestingly enough, they're reusing an image, a painting of Elric that I've seen many, many times before as far as the core rulebook cover. And it is a planned release in 2027. So, of course, it's going to come to crowdfunding would be my guess. Danny Gable says a pissing contest. I wouldn't say that. Because I got to be honest, I don't really see Goodman Games or the folks over at Free League getting into a pissing contest. But it is possible that they are looking at adventures, because this is the way it's explained by Goodman Games. It's the era of Elric is what I saw, and there's very little information. It's just Joe Goodman has said, hey, we're going to start, doing these releases for 5e and for Dungeon Crawl Classics. So I would think we're probably looking at Dungeon Crawl Classics Adventures, and then maybe the Age of Elric is like kind of like part of the 5th edition fantasy line, because we'll see that a lot, where we'll see the Dungeon Crawl Classics adventure gets a title, and then we'll see that adventure ported over to 5e, and it's part of the what they call the 5th edition fantasy line. So I've seen that with Sailors on a Starless Sea, because they ported that over to 5e not that long ago. So Danny Gable says Goodman announced they had a license agreement this past weekend. So, and Kevin R. Smith says, okay, it looks like they both might be licensed. I figured they were. I'm just curious because usually an IP holder does not license out the same rights to more than one company. So as an example, like Lord of the Rings, we talked a little bit about their licensing and what a disaster it's supposed to be. They have to work with the company that you have to deal with, who holds the licensing for like board games and role-playing games and stuff like that. So they'll license out board games based on The Hobbit to a company. And then they'll license out board games based on The Lord of the Rings to another company. And then they'll license out role-playing rights to both of those, as well as maybe the Silmarillion or all of Tolkien's published works to another company. So I would not be shocked if we'll be looking at very strict. What would be the word I'm looking for without I would say there are going to be lanes that each of the companies are going to remain within to continue with the licensing. So as long as they don't overstep their bounds. Tessie Trekkie says, Elric, the original whiny emo elf lord who needs a good teeth kicking in. Really? I love the Elric stories. I wasn't too keen on the newer stories that Moorcock released, but the first 6 books I thought were great. So I don't really. Tessie Trekkie must not have run across too many folks who are really, truly emo. Because I'm like, no. So, that's kind of funny because Agile Monk says, I worry a little bit about how Joe at Goodman Games is going to handle Elric. And to me, I thought to myself when I saw this today for Free League, I thought to myself, really? Another role-playing game from Free League Publishing? Aren't they spread really thin right now? In fact, I got a comment from somebody on last night's show, because remember I shared the news about Hobbit Tales coming for the One Ring, and it's simply the adventure content and the region content from the starter set collected in a single volume. And they had commented, oh, great. So we can't get anything for the Walking Dead universe, but Free League's going to reprint the starter set content as a hardcover. It's like, come on. And I could see where they're coming from. But then I also commented back, no pun intended, I had the feeling that the Walking Dead universe role-playing game was kind of dead on arrival when it came out. Starter set was pretty crappy, was not a good starter set. And the core rulebook for the core game, it was all right. It was like about a 6.57. I think I gave it like a 7. But I kind of had a feeling we weren't really going to see anything out of that. So that has kind of been the case. So yeah, when I heard Free League was going to do Legends of Stormbringer, I thought to myself, I don't know. So I think it's funny how Agile Monk's sitting there going, I wonder how Joe Goodman's going to handle that over at Goodman Games. I'm a little concerned. And to me, I'm like, I think it should be in pretty good hands. I liked what they did with Ankmar. I liked what they did with The Dying Earth. So Savage Splendor's with us in chat, says, yeah, Free League's definitely stretching themselves thin on licensed materials. And Valamir Cleaver is with us once again. Said, how very punny. Ravenclaw says, I thought the Melniboneans were not human. Were human, not elves. They're not elves, but they are their own race. That's why the young kingdoms are the humans, and they are elvish. I would say that the elves from Warhammer Fantasy owe a lot to the concept of Melnibone. I grew up for years saying Elric of Melnibone. Elliot, same thing. Melnibone. And then it was maybe a year and a half ago, I started listening to an audiobook and it was like Melnibone. It's like, what? Really? And then I double checked and I was like, yeah, that was the case. But once again, when I originally read the books, and I've read them a handful of times over the years, but I hadn't read them since since audiobooks became a thing. And there was no way for you to find out how the hell it was pronounced. But there was no internet, and there was no way to go look it up. Tessie Trekkie says the Walking Dead franchise is dead now. Yeah, pretty much. That's what another thing I was really surprised when Free League Publishing decided, they were going to do the Walking Dead universe role-playing game. I thought, aren't you a little late to the party? Wouldn't that have been a better idea like 6-7 years ago? Ravenclaw says, to be honest, Free League is a pretty solid. Yeah, don't get me wrong. For the most part, they usually are. But every once in a while, we do see something slip on through that's kind of a disappointment. The starter set for Tales from the Loop. I almost said Things from the Flood. Tales from the Loop starter set is really weak. I mean, we're talking maybe a single session adventure, stretching it to 2 maybe, and all of like 42 pages of content. I mean, it's not good. And then you look at other stuff like the Alien box sets, and you're like, holy shit. Or like the Blade Runner box sets. You're like, wow, this is just jam-packed with content. And then you take a look at something like, Tales from the Loop, and you're like, weird. Anyway, so that was the other news item that I did want to share with you tonight. But I just didn't put anything together because all I've got for both those news items is one single image of the cover of the core book for Legends of Stormbringer. And there are no details, just they're coming. It's coming. All we know. Ravenclaw says they normally don't get starter sets. All depends. All depends on what you might be looking at. So like as an example, the beginner boxes for Pathfinder, Starfinder, excellent. Really, really good. The Call of Cthulhu starter set, fantastic. The Rune Quest starter set, fantastic. Some starter sets out there, what to me sets a fantastic starter set apart from other starter sets is how much adventuring content is contained in that starter set. If it's just some little introductory adventure that you would maybe see at the back of a core book, but like Call of Cthulhu, Rune Quest, Pathfinder, Starfinder, all have enough content for the game master and players to keep them occupied for a multiple number of sessions. So, but I understand. I mean, sometimes a starter set, it depends on how they strip it down. That's something else. But if you get a starter set that has a couple of booklets in it, and each one, let's say, is the rules, kind of your game master book, and the other is your adventure book, and they both clock in at about 50 pages, you should be getting a decent amount of content with that. But Savage Splendor says one of the best starter sets was the original 3E D&D box set. Never saw it, to be very honest. Had never had a chance to take a peek at that. Agile Monk also points out, yeah, starter sets can be really hit or miss, which is why he relies on me and the gaming gang to assess the majority of them before considering buying. Well, sadly, I don't get a chance to see a majority of them out there, but I do get to see a good number of starter sets. I really do. And thankfully, most of them are, pretty good. All right. Anyway, so that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I did mention Drive-Thru RPG a few times. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to go visit, say, Drive-Thru RPG, Storyteller's Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, any of the numerous One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get 5% of that sale. Should also mention I am an affiliate of both Fanatical, which is where the really great Delta Green bundle is going on currently. I am also an affiliate of Humble Bundle. So we just talked about that Magpie physical book bundle. If you're interested in either of those, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. I have news pieces right there on the front page. You're going to see them right there. Click on that. Use those links because then I'll get a little commission on those as well. Of course, all these commissions really do add up. Help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. If you're watching on a mobile device and you've got some hype points left, sprinkle a little hype point on the video. And of course, if you're taking part in chat, give a heart or a little, what is it? It's like a bouquet of flowers or 100%, whatever. Shows engagement. So looking for that. All right, Coco B has joined us. Kunfasa has popped on in. And we have Peter23525 joining us as well, mentioning that Dragonbane is a great starter box. Funny enough, it's really not a starter box, though. It's the game. That's why Free League Publishing has never referred to it as a starter set, because that's the core book. That's why people were surprised when, and some people were kind of ticked off when Free League Publishing ended up releasing that as a hardcover. And they're like, why didn't you just do that and put it in the box? I was like, well. Kunfasa says, funny topic is they've been downloading all the free retro clones just a few days ago. And there are many of them out there. So, something else I should also point out, if you enjoy the Gaming Gang, if you find this to be a valuable resource, if you enjoy the channel, hell, if you just dig what we do. We've also got a couple of other ways you can support the outlet. First, by making a one-time donation by way of PayPal. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Lovely. And you can also become a monthly member of our Patreon. Yes. Got a new Patreon member just signed up yesterday. So I also like to give a big thank you to our Patreon members during our live streams. So a big thank you to Ben Oathwaite, Kuval, Kevin R. Smith, Talzak, Sean O'Donnell, Herman Lutman, Gustavo Cavalho, Kevin King, Game Cat, RPG Munch, Tier 2 DM, Far Adrift, Pete Stracklich, Dan Webb, Tessie Trekkie, Agile Monk, The Madman, Flint Fireforge, and I forgot to jot down our new member. Nice going, Jeff. So let me hop on in. I tell you. The reason why I mention this is because, all right, come on. I really dislike Patreon's layout. It is so unintuitive. Yeah, of course. It's, well, it is Scott Adams, but that is not the name that they usually go by. So anyway, yeah, that was good content, right? Everybody's like, wow, it's fantastic. All right, so do have a giveaway tonight as well. And I am going to give away a copy of the, let's see, it is Grim Hollow 2nd Edition Player's Guide. I almost said Player's Handbook. So, so today's trivia question shall be, Bram Stoker is known for Dracula, but there is another horror novel that he is the author of. It is The Lair of what? First person to get me the correct answer in chat is going to win a copy of Grim Hollow 2nd Edition Player's Guide from Ghostfire Gaming. So there you go. Very nice. All right. Anyway, there you go. Kevin R. Smith got it. Bang! It's The Lair of the White Worm. Also a really lackluster film. Although there is a lot of nudity in it. So I guess if, you know. Anyway, so congratulations. Kevin, you know the drill. Shoot me an email over at jeffmaclear@thegaminggang.com from your Gmail account that's associated with your YouTube account. I will get that out to you. So real quickly, we were talking about, so I know some of you have not had great days today, right? So I know where you're coming from. Last night, I get an email from San Diego Comic-Con. Now, I had already assumed that they weren't going to give us press passes this year. And I was fine with that. I was like, you know, getting a little old for this, especially that convention, because it is, you know, 250,000 people all packed down there around the convention center. So anyway, so I get an email, and it's regarding, it's like RE, the Gaming Gang San Diego Comic-Con press application. So I'm figuring I click on that, it's going to be, hey, you know, thank you very much, but, you know, we just don't have enough passes, blah, blah, blah. No, it said, your press application has been accepted and approved. I'm like, okay. So as far as Comic-Con goes, each outlet has like a contact. So I am the Gaming Gang's contact. So I assign passes to people. So because I had already talked to Elliot, I said, hey, you know what? If I do get approved, I was going to give him the pass along with me, you know, myself as well, right? Because we used to get 3 passes, then they cut us down to 2. So I was like, oh, wow. Because my brother can get passes from his buddy who owns Graham Crackers Comics, because he exhibits there. He's been exhibiting there for years, and he always has extra passes to give to his big spenders. So anyway, so I'm like, oh, sweet. So I go in, I log in, and they gave me a pass. We didn't get our usual allotment of 2 passes. I got a pass. So I was like, well, that's kind of stupid. They see where I'm from. So I shot an email back, and I said, yeah, it would be silly for me to come out there by myself to try to cover Comic-Con, because our convention coverage always requires a cameraman. So I said, just go ahead and give my pass to another outlet, right? Somebody who's going to be able to use it. So wake up this morning, and I have an email about our reservation for Gen Con, the hotel that Elliot and I are staying at. And it says our reservation has been canceled. I'm like, what the fuck? What do you mean it's been canceled? So I'm reading it, and it just says, hey, it's been canceled. The location has canceled the reservation. And the thing is, Elliot and I got a smoking deal for Wednesday through Sunday. Because obviously these people had no idea that Gen Con was taking place. So I call up, talk to somebody, and they're like, well, I don't know anything. I'm not the reservation person. A reservation person isn't here right now. Call after 9 o'clock. And I was like, well, it's 11 o'clock a.m. your time right now. Are you saying after 9 p.m.? And they're like, yes, please. And I'm thinking, who the hell has a reservation person that only comes in at night? So this is what I think it is. They realized that they were just charging their regular rate. Well, everybody around them had basically either doubled or tripled their rate for a night. Agile Monk says after 9 p.m. is going to be the night auditor. I gotta be honest, I would be highly surprised if it's a night auditor I end up talking to, but it's probably just somebody who works the desk. Yep, there you go. Agile Monk said they canceled so they could recharge everyone at a new premium rate. Well, this is what I think probably happened. Because when I called up, the woman was like, oh, I don't know. We're overbooked. That's my understanding, but you would have to talk to whoever. Well, the thing is, I booked the room like February 6th. So if they're overbooked, why would they be booting me out, who's had a reservation for months before the housing portal even opened up for Gen Con? Because these guys, this place wasn't on it. So what I told Elliot is I got the feeling that at some point in time, they realized, oh my gosh, all these people are booking here. Something's going on. And they went and took a peek to see what other hotels and motels were charging. So they jacked their rate up. So everybody who booked after a certain point paid the higher rate. And now they're going back in and they're going to cancel the reservations for the people who got the lower rate before they figured it out. That's okay. I am going to be calling them after 9 o'clock Eastern time tonight. I'm going to call them after I'm done with the show. And I think most of you already realize I don't take people's shit. Now, I already booked another room somewhere else, but we were not happy about having to. Now we're like twice as far away, paying a little bit more. But we were actually staying at a place that it was going to come out for 4 nights. And if you've been to Gen Con, if you've been to Indy for Gen Con, you know they get you. I mean, food prices, stuff like that, they don't really hit you like if you go out to San Diego Comic-Con. It's like everybody jacks their prices up as far as like food and beverage and stuff like that. Indy's not like that, but the hotels and motels are just 2 or 3 times at least their going rates. So we were going to be 7 miles away from the convention center. So we'd already figured we were just going to take Lyft. We weren't even going to bother driving down, paying for parking and trying to, we were just going to take Lyft or Uber or whatever. So we were 7 miles away, and on booking.com, it was like an 8.1 with like 300 reviews. And it was going to cost Elliot and I each $180 for the 4 nights. Shazama is with us tonight, says, is it 9 p.m. Central? No, it's Eastern. It's Indianapolis. So, but yeah, I mean, it's not like I got to call them right at 9 or something like that. No, I'm just going to figure by the time the show's over, I will give them a call. Anyway, Shazama said last weekend, a lot of reservations were canceled because BTS came to town. Some people were able to stay with local fans. Oh my gosh. Holy cow. Anyway, so we got a topic tonight. It's not going to be a super long topic. So that's why I didn't mind sitting here chatting about what's been going on. Like I said, it's been a weird 24 hours. It's sort of like, well, okay, that's kind of frustrating. You're giving me a pass for San Diego Comic-Con. That's kind of weird. And then it's like, oh, our room is canceled. What the hell's going on here? So Little Britain says, tell him you're a lawyer. I'm going to tell him I'm media, I'm press. So when I call up, I'm going to tell him, hey, just so you know, whatever you tell me on this phone call is on the record. Watch him hang up. So, yeah, tell him you're a lawyer so it won't really cost you anything to sue them for breach of contract. Yeah, so hello, Little Britain. Good to see you once again. So it's like, call after the break and live stream it. Yeah, I don't have anything down here to do that with, sadly enough. Anyway, I'll let you guys know what happens next week. Don't worry. So tonight's topic is what makes a role-playing game part of the new SR. And I am going to be discussing that. But first, it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Hello. You know, when you fix an Italian food, everything is gotta be just perfect. Especially when you're making a pizza. I'm gonna show you. Looks good? You betcha my life. And it's delicious. That's a pizza you get at the theater. So hurry up. Get yourself some.
New from Lego. Indiana Jones, the great adventure hero. Can he get out of the collapsing temple? Survive the secret traps? And the giant boulder? It's in your hands to help Indiana Jones. Prepare the getaway and bring home the treasure. You control the adventure. With the new Lego Indiana Jones collection.
Oh, buy us, oh, buy us, oh, buy us, we beg. For if you don't buy us, we'll bite you in the leg.
Now, hold on. What kind of an attitude is that?
So buy us at once a bundle of charms.
And if you don't buy us, we'll break both your arms.
Okay, that's enough. Friends, buy the ideal Muppets. The kids will be screaming for them.
Into the strange and wild interior of darkest Africa, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer sent a motion picture company on safari. Here in its original setting, where no white woman had ever been before, was filmed the story of primitive savagery, of incredible danger. You'll thrill to the magnificent love story of the flaming redhead and the handsome jungle adventurer, as together they fight their hazardous way through a vast land of mystery and excitement in their relentless quest for the fabulous fortune that rests in King Solomon's mines.
To my knowledge, no white man has been near the Calawanas for 5 years. Nowadays, they're feared as much by the natives as they are by the whites. We're going to have trouble getting our own boys to get that far.
How long will it take us to get there?
Weeks, months perhaps, I don't know. I've never taken a woman on safari with me before.
Have I been a handicap?
The fun hasn't started yet.
When it does, I'm sure we'll all enjoy it.
What do you think you are doing? You had no intention of letting us leave this place alive. You're going to get us out of here before those fellows outside start warming up and carrying out your orders.
King Solomon's mine.
King Solomon's Mines. Thrill to the stampede of stock footage. But as chat is mentioning, I would take a guess that movie is probably better than the Richard Chamberlain / Sharon Stone version. And like Harvey Chuckles, I've only seen about 15 minutes of that one too. It was sort of, okay, we could tell it's trying to rip off Indiana Jones. I get it. Tell you what, though, with the Muppet commercial, every time I see that, you see the two Kermits, my mind immediately jumps to the two little girls on the tricycles, or not, the two little girls standing there. Danny's on the tricycle in The Shining. Come play with us. I don't know why it is. I see that. I'm like, The Shining. Ugh. All right. So tonight, our topic is what makes a role-playing game part of the new SR, the new school renaissance. Because we were talking about old school last night, and our topic was, has it peaked? And is it now on its downward swing? And my summation is that I think the retro clones were pretty much done with seeing new ones, or at least not very regularly. But as far as the supplemental material and adventures and that, I think it's still very, very viable. And now I did see some folks had commented saying, well, they kind of think that the OSR has kind of run its course. I don't know. I mean, I'm just sharing my opinion. But the topic of new SR came out last night from some folks in chat as well. And there have been a few people who had said, hey, Jeff, why don't you do a topic about what is new SR? Because there are a lot of people out there who are kind of confused with what it is. It's bad enough that OSR confuses people. New SR is probably just as confusing. So let's focus for just a second on the old school revival, which is what most people originally said OSR stood for, right? I like to say Renaissance simply because I think that opens up a little bit of wiggle room. But for the most part, the common definition of old school revival is a new role-playing game which reinterprets the core mechanics of the original TSR games, like original Dungeons and Dragons, Holmes D&D, Basic Experts, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and so forth. Some people say second edition AD&D is not old school, is not part of the core mechanics for an OSR release. Other people say, no, it's so similar to first edition AD&D that yes, you can include that as well. But it is, as Agile Monk points out, it's very confusing. Because then you'll have other people say, no, OSR is this, not that, or it's this on top of that. But what I always understood, the original definition of old school revival was a new role-playing game that was reinterpreting the mechanics and systems of those other games. And it had to be those other games. So as an example, like Mithras is not an OSR game built off of RuneQuest. It doesn't fall into that category, although RuneQuest was around in the late 70s, so it's part of that period. Same thing with anything that's built off of classic Traveler, like the Cepheus engine, or other releases from like Hostile. Those are not considered by the vast majority of people out there as OSR because their mechanics don't come from the TSR games. They come from GDW's Traveler. So to start talking about new SR, we have to kind of come to grips with what OSR is. So for the most part, a new SR game is looking at an old school mentality, as I like to say. So the Tabletop Scholar is with us. Welcome aboard. Actually, the Tabletop Scholar is our latest Patreon member. Thank you very kindly. Anyway. So a new school role-playing game has an old school mentality. Now, an old school mentality or old school theming could come down to a few different tenets of original role-playing games. So I'll give you a few examples of role-playing games that are considered new SR. So Shadow Dark, Malsunita is considered new SR. Mirkborg is considered new SR, which also means that Pirate Borg, my favorite of the Borg games out there, is new SR. Land of Eam is new SR. Castles and Crusades, some people would say that it's new SR. I wouldn't, because something else, in my opinion, that needs to be for a game to be considered new SR is it has to have come out like in the last 4 or 5 years. right? Castles and Crusades has been around now for, what, 20 years? So, yeah, I don't think that really counts, right, as new SR. So, games that focus on emergent play can be considered new SR. Once again, most new SR games will have more than just one single tenet of the original role-playing games. So as an example, if it's a role-playing game that is focused on hex crawling and emergent play and player agency, that is probably going to be a new SR game. Mazes from 9th Level Games, I would consider to be a new SR game. And if you're not overly familiar with Mazes, we've been talking about it recently. I don't know. It just keeps popping in my head. It uses the polymorph system where, depending on your class, is the die that you'll roll all the time. So if you're kind of a cleric character, you roll a 12-sided die. If you're a fighter character, you roll a 10-sided die. It's pretty wild. Oh, no, I take that back. If you're a cleric, it's a 10-sider. If you're the fighter, it's 8. If you're a rogue, it's a 6-sider. And then if you're a magic user, scholar type, it's a 4-sider. So mechanically, it has nothing to do with OD&D, AD&D, Basic Expert, any of that. It is its own beast. But I would consider it to be new SR because it is very focused on sword and sorcery, as well as the players using this rather than staring at their character sheet to try to figure out, okay, so which one of these items on my character sheet unlocks this riddle that we're facing. See, that's another thing that's very big on new SR. You don't normally see a lot of class and level feats and abilities and so forth. Now, that's not to say that as you gain experience, your character doesn't get better. Obviously, they do. But it's not one of these systems where you're 5th level and suddenly you're like a superhero. And next time you level up, you're probably going to hit like demigod status at level 6. No, nothing like that. New SR games tend to have squishier characters. So they can be harmed and take dirt naps far, far easier than more modern role-playing games. A new SR game also doesn't have to be fantasy. So you could have, like, say, I don't know how Joe Goodman and Goodman Games would define Dungeon Crawl Classics and Mutant Crawl Classics. I don't know if they would say that they are new SR, because we already know, and I find it funny when people tell me, well, no, Dungeon Crawl Classics is OSR. And I'm like, well, okay, then you go tell Joe Goodman that, because Joe Goodman says it's not. And he's the designer of it. So, but I wonder if they consider it new SR. I don't know. I would think they probably do. I would probably think they do. Tessie Trekkie says, I'll add Into the Odd and the Bastion Land games as new SR. I would as well. Something else that a new SR game might have that's different than, I'll just keep calling them the original games, or I'll say the original TSR games, because I don't want to shortchange, like Traveler and Call of Cthulhu and RuneQuest and Tunnels and Trolls and stuff like that. So I'll say original TSR games. You may not have those 6 common attributes. You might have 3. You might have none. You might have keywords instead of numeric values. But they're still serving the same purpose as the various different attributes from the original TSR games. So that is one of the reasons why, yes, I would certainly include Into the Odd. Even though I got to be honest, I thought it was okay. It just, Into the Odd just I didn't connect with it for some reason. I don't know if maybe it was a little too off the wall for me. I have not taken a look at the Bastion Land games yet. So Agile Monk says, I'm giving a generalized explanation because of the amount of confusion going on the last couple of years. So that is Agile Monk has been doing that in chat. Says OSR leans on the GM's quick decision making. New OSR introduces clearer rules and encourages shared narrative creation. Not always. There are some new OSR games where there is a strong I don't necessarily say separation, but there is the GM and the players. Not to say the players aren't making an impact on the game world, but I do see games that are that do look to take a more narrative approach. But Little Britain says, I reject the narrowness of D&D only OSR. Traveler, RuneQuest, Tunnels and Trolls, so on, all deserve standing as OSR. But they're not. Because for one, D&D is an OSR. D&D is original. So OSR is retro clones. Things that build off of those original games. See, that's some more confusion that people have. And I'll even say it from time to time. Even though I know better, it just stumbles out of my mouth. And then I stop and say, well, no, wait, hang on. But Advanced Dungeons and Dragons is not OSR. It's OG. So is original Dungeons and Dragons and so forth. That's all OG. So it's not OSR. But then when you look at something like Swords and Wizardry, well, then yes, that's OSR. Just like Old School Essentials, that is OSR. So, but I disagree with you on the Traveler, the RuneQuest, Tunnels and Trolls. And the reason why I say that is because there really isn't a market out there for like retro clones of those games. And I'll explain why. Well, maybe not necessarily Tunnels and Trolls anymore once we see the edition that comes out from oh gosh, off the top of my head, I forget who it is. Rebellion Unplugged. Come on to say Renegade Game Studios. And I'm like, no, I know that's not right. So, Joseph Purdy's with us tonight. Good to see you once again. Anyway, so the reason why you don't really see a whole lot of, in fact, very little, as far as retro clones go for like Call of Cthulhu, RuneQuest, and so forth, is because those games are still very much active and very much pretty much the same exact games they originally were mechanically, outside of tweaks here and there. But if you take a look at Mongoose Traveler 2nd Edition and you look at Classic Traveler, it is so obvious where those share just tons of design DNA. You could very easily take a tale that's designed for classic Traveler and use it with the current edition of Traveler from Mongoose. You can take a Call of Cthulhu adventure from 1982 and still run it with practically no modifications at all with 7th edition Call of Cthulhu. RuneQuest, same thing. But yes, over the years, have there been tweaks and changes? Yes, there have. But those games have still remained pretty much the same. Whereas we have not seen that with Dungeons and Dragons. So Dungeons and Dragons has changed quite a lot system-wise and as far as design philosophy, both with the game itself and adventures, radically since the original TSR games. So, and that's why I think we see a lot of, well, I mean, we see the OSR movement is because people were interested in playing the fantasy role-playing games and other games as well, but mainly it's fantasy. It's not the only genre, but it's the main focus. But people wanted to enjoy these adventures the way they originally were, either out of nostalgia for what they grew up with, and they wanted to share that with their friends and family and their kids, things like that, or they had heard stories about the halcyon days of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and they're interested in seeing how different it is from modern D&D. So you got to remember, not everybody playing 5e Dungeons and Dragons, or I guess I should say 5.5e Dungeons and Dragons, is a fanatic about this current edition of D&D. There are players out there who are playing Dungeons and Dragons because that's the only game in town for them. They aren't necessarily all sitting there going, well, you know what? I can't wait to begin a new campaign so I can write up a 20-page backstory. No, not everybody's like that. So I think that's kind of cool. Little Britain says, actually, Traveler had retro clones before that was a term. Judges Guild Traveler, Mega Traveler, basically retro clones. But Mega Traveler was still from GDW. Judges Guild Traveler was Adventures. I don't remember Judges Guild actually having a Traveler core. I mean, that's a possibility. I don't know. I am certainly not an expert on Judges Guild. One of the reasons why, even when I was into D&D, I didn't pick up the Judges Guild stuff is because it came on like pulp paper. And I always thought, man, this just feels really cheap. Even though there was good stuff, well, I learned years and years later. But Mega Traveler was GDW. So the actual publisher doesn't create a retro clone of its own work. But so yeah, Kevin R. Smith points out, wasn't Mega Traveler made by GDW, publisher of Traveler? Yeah, right. It was supposed to be another edition of Traveler, and it went over like a Led Zeppelin. Now, I'm not saying that we haven't had games that built off of like Call of Cthulhu. Tunnels and Trolls, I gotta be honest, I've never seen anything that was like a Tunnels and Trolls retro clone. I mean, they had different editions. They tweaked some different things, but there isn't anything out there that I can think of. There may have been at some point that had the systems from Tunnels and Trolls, which, to be very honest, if you're not familiar with it, and sadly, you really can't get the Flying Buffalo editions of Tunnels and Trolls unless you go onto the secondary market. Because now we've got the new edition that crowdfunded. It's probably coming out later this year. But for a game that came out in the late 70s, those mechanics feel modern. They really do. They're not everyone's cup of tea. And I mentioned when I did my review of the deluxe edition of Tunnels and Trolls that I'm not sure how well the game plays with like higher level adventuring. And I get it, you know, because you're chucking all these dice and it's like, well, there's ways to trim the number of dice down. And sort of like, well, that kind of defeats the purpose of having all the, oh, I got all these dice to roll. Much, much easier if you're using a dice rolling app. But like I said, I don't think I've seen anything like that. So anyway, back to the new SR. Dolmenwood is not, I wouldn't consider it new SR because it's too close to old school essentials. I mean, the reality of it is if you're intimately familiar with old school essentials, you can just slip right on into Dolmenwood, except, obviously it's got different magic and it's got different species and it's got different classes and stuff like that. But the game mechanically is almost identical. Tabletop Scholar says, I thought the same exact thing. The legacy games that haven't changed much, mostly with the recent Tunnels and Trolls release, a big rift. Yeah, I might still be the only person who shared like a fairly detailed first look. I did it live on a show after Gen Con because people were curious about it. Yeah, putting to bed classic Tunnels and Trolls. Yeah, I know. See, in situations like that, if something is out of print and the company is no longer in business and the publisher is no longer alive, now the creator is, one of the creators is. I don't have an issue with people finding those sorts of things in PDF and downloading it. To me, I don't find that to be pirating. I mean, maybe I just have an odd way of looking at things. But it's not for sale anyplace. You can't get it anyplace. Flying Buffalo Games isn't losing any money. Rick Loomis isn't losing any money because you're getting a PDF someplace. Yeah. So, Agile Monk says, Dolmenwood is OSC with some nice magical gravy on it. Yes, we get some different kinds of magic. Little Prince says, what they're saying is you have to playing those old games is participate in an old school renaissance in the literal sense. Yeah, I believe it. So Little Britain also says, yeah, Judges Guild published a rule book. They've got it. Well, like I said, I wasn't going to argue because I don't know. I didn't think that was the case, but hey, anything's possible. Tabletop Scholar says, when the TNT came out, I watched your review. Immediately picked up a copy of the deluxe on eBay while they are still relatively affordable. Thanks for the content. Really helped. Well, thank you. I think most people come to realize that I don't claim to be an expert on anything. I've been around in the hobby for a long time, but I'm still, there were points in time where I was not into anything other than Call of Cthulhu. And then I'd still pick up splats and stuff like that from time to time. But there was a period of a good maybe 10, 12 years that I didn't pick up anything unless it was for C of C. So, I mean, there's a lot of, just like, like Little Britain saying, hey, Judges Guild had a Traveler rule book. Okay. I'm like, all right, because I wouldn't know. But I do try my best to give you just a straight up review of things and just give you, an unvarnished opinion. So I know there are some people who disagree with my reviews on some things, and I'm fine with that. Once again, I pointed out before, I'm not as big a stickler on typos and stuff. I'll mention it. I'll probably ding the review score a little bit for it, but I don't like flip out because it's like, oh my God, I found 8 typos in the book. Okay, should they be there? No. Did they somehow make it in? Yeah. I'm looking at you, Trollord Games. Though somebody had said that the World Book for the Northlands has a bunch of typos in it. So I have not cracked it open yet. As I mentioned, I'm working on a couple of Kickstarter previews. I've actually got 3 that are all supposed to hit this month. So, Little Britain asks, so is new SR also necessarily D&D based? No. So, as I had mentioned, let's get back to the new SR. And then for a few more minutes, and then we're going to wrap up. Because I got to make that phone call. Yeah, you canceled our reservation. Why? So, new SR is more concerned with like the mentality of the old school, right? It's more the mentality, it's more the theming, it's more the style of play that you would find with the original TSR games, as opposed to like the more modern approach. So, as an example, in a new SR game, you find normally, it'll, of course, obviously depend on the adventure. You're normally going to find more situations where you get an adventure and the adventure has keyed locations that tell you what's there, what might happen if your characters do certain things, but it's built on emergent play. So it's not plotted out. So prime example of this would be the Mouse Ritter adventures, which are pamphlets. And it's essentially a location, gives you the keyed map, different keyed items, and then you're going from there. So a lot of times with a new SR adventure, you might have the original hook, but then the players, once they get the adventure going, then it's going to kind of just fall out, kind of like just fall out in front of them, right? So it's not as if it's an adventure where it's like, okay, so the players do this, and then they have to do this, which then will allow them to go this way. We don't tend to see new SR games scene-based, whereas we see a lot of other role-playing games nowadays. A lot of the Free League Publishing games actually are scene-based. The One Ring, the Lord of the Rings role-playing, Blade Runner, Alien, those are scene-based. Dragonbane, not so much. Dragonbane still kind of skews a little more towards the kind of classical kind of TSR style adventures where it's also, I mean, they're not laid out like that, but it's still like, okay, so this location, this is what's going on here, going on here, going on here, going on here. Not, okay, so your player characters are going to have to go to this spot, and then they go to this spot, and then they go to this spot, which is something you see like in Call of Cthulhu adventures. You don't tend to see a lot of sandbox aspects to a Call of Cthulhu adventure. Sometimes you do, but for the most part, which makes sense to me. I know some people don't dig that because they're like, well, it's too linear. Yeah, but it's also a horror role-playing game. So certain things need to kind of happen to build the tension. That's why I'm also, I know, kind of off topic here. I'm also a firm believer that the horror role-playing games out there where it's like, oh, everybody, we're building the story together, don't usually turn out to be too scary. Savage Splendor says Troll Games misspelled words are like little Easter eggs to hunt down in each product. It's a pretty big basket of Easter eggs, though. So, Little Britain mentions if it's too broad, it's just indie. Right, exactly. So, if a role-playing game that's come out in the past few years does not have like a mindset that harkens back to the 70s and 80s, then it's not going to be new school. And there are many, many role-playing games like that that are certainly not going to be new school. A lot of the role-playing games that you'll find on itch.io are not new school. And I know I got to be honest, there's some out there that they try to advertise, well, yeah, this is new school, and it really isn't. It's more, new school games don't tend to be all about narrative play. Now, I'm not saying they can't be theater of the mind, but new school games do tend to try to include like combat and combat rounds and things like that, where some indie games are just very hand waving as far as any sort of conflict, which is fine. I mean, if that's the kind of game you want to play, it's cool. So Kevin R. Smith says, yeah, Dragonbane's a weird case because it's been published in Sweden under another title for decades. Yes, because it's not a Free League publishing game originally. Kevin R. Smith also points out Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay and Call of Cthulhu are the original games. They're not cloning themselves or drawing inspiration from themselves. No. The only retro clone, which I don't even know if I necessarily call it that. I know its designer would be Zweihander. To me, that is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay with the serial numbers filed off. Not necessarily 4th edition. It's earlier edition Wifrip, but I guarantee that would never be referred to by Daniel Fox as a retro clone. I'm certain that he would say, oh, it's its own game. Anyway. Little Britain says, yes, I like that you can run B1 as a definition of both OSR and new SR. Yeah, I would agree with you on that. Little Britain asks, what about Braunstein-like games? When you talk about Braunstein, are you talking more like the I don't know. Some people kind of lean more towards it's more about Dave and his way of running things as opposed to Gary and his way of running things. So is that what you're talking about? Because I'll tell you what, talk about confusion. I'm not positive as far as like Braunstein games, because I've heard different things referred to as Braunstein games that were like completely night and day. So I don't know. So yes, Tabletop Scholar, we already talked about Legends of Stormbringer a little bit earlier. That's one of the reasons why we didn't get into our topic until almost the top of the hour, because we were talking about that, as well as Goodman Games going to be doing Melna Benean content with, I think their line is going to be Age of Elric is what they're going to call it. Okay. So yeah, so I thought what Little Britain meant was the Stein, whatever, was more like from the late 60s. But I guess not. Very large, very narrative, rulings based. Don't games like doesn't that game have like it has like a judge, right? Like a referee. So I was gonna say I think that's a really niche. Yes, right. So Kevin R. Smith says Dave Wesley still runs Brunstein's Mausrita games at conventions. They're more war games with lots of PvP. Well, like I said, I'm not overly familiar with it, but yeah, I had always thought that it's more along the lines of the various different kind of games that led to D&D. So, like the stuff that Dave Arneson did, the stuff that Secrets of Blackmore, isn't that the name of it? The documentary that it's mainly focused on Dave got into, where it was more war game like, because they had miniatures and stuff like that. But then he would like each of the players was like a character, and they would actually have skills, and they had the various different skills, and they had to roll less than the number on 2d6. Yeah, there we go. So Kevin R. Smith says, yep, Blackmore was first pitched as a medieval Bronstein. So yeah, okay, all right. So yeah, so I guess I am correct, because that's what I always thought they were. But then I had also been told that they were more along the lines of like role-playing games where you didn't have a board, you didn't have a field of battle, you didn't have miniatures, that it was all narrative. I had heard that referred to as however it's pronounced, right? And I didn't think that was it. I thought it was the stuff that Dave Arneson did prior to them moving to like D&D stuff, where he took chainmail and he essentially took chainmail and applied his skills and stuff to it, and then came up with the different attributes and classes and stuff like that. So Kunfas says, make it a funnel, a Brawlstein funnel. Yes. All righty. So once again, a new school role-playing game utilizes themes, styles, techniques from the original TSR games. So like hex crawls, the big ones are player agency, emergent play. You could do like West Marches. In fact, I do see the West Marches kind of being a thing with some of the new SR releases that are out there. So characters that aren't super heroic, you know, as starting characters tend to be a bit squishier. So all of that, but they don't have to use any of the mechanics from those original TSR games. So It's more the, like I said before, it's more the mindset of the original TSR games with modern mechanics. So that is new SR. So I don't know. I think it's probably easier to define new SR than OSR. But Little Britain says, I only know some of this stuff from Daddy Rolled a 1. How dare you advertise some other outlet? I'm just kidding. I've never watched any of their stuff. I know who it is, but so Mark Hawkswell says, so OSR is primarily retro clones. We getting back into this? I was planning on wrapping this show up. You know, I got a call I need to make. Dave6220 says Arneson came up with the single player character design. Yes. So as I talked about last night, we'll do this real quick. So OSR, as far as defining it, kind of tough. But OSR games are built off of the original TSR games. So mechanically, they're going to be similar. As far as the style, the theming, the mentality of an OSR game, yes, it has to be similar to the original TSR games. But OSR games will use, for the most part, the same systems and mechanics as those 1970s and early 1980s games as its skeleton of design. If it doesn't, then it falls into the new SR. That's how I look at it. So an OSR game is essentially built off of the original TSR games. So normally you are going to see the 6 attributes, the 6 characteristics. You're going to have that. You're going to have armor class. You're going to have hit dice for monsters. Those tend to be systems that are kind of baked into the cake of those original TSR games. They also do carry over into the OSR games. So that's how I kind of look at it. Now, I tend to say old school Renaissance because I tend to look at some games that may not necessarily be considered OSR by the masses that I think do skew as OSR. So anyway, so Chris Lundgren's popping in a bit late. So we have GM Sedated Man, who's been with us for a while. This will be the last question. How new does it have to be? I would think a new school game has to pretty much have been coming out while that term was invented. Like we were mentioning Castles and Crusades. Some people could say, yeah, Castles and Crusades, that's new school because it's not really OSR. I kind of consider it OSR just because of its mentality. But if we're defining OSR as systems, mechanics, everything from those original TSR games, then no. Castles and Crusades is not an OSR game, but it's also been around about 20 years. So I think that kind of takes it out of the realm of new SR too. So, all right. So that is it for this time out. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watch live and took part in chat, get a tip of the cap, because not only Are you keeping me company while I'm sharing the tabletop role-playing game news? You're also keeping each other company while I'm talking about other stuff as well. So you keep me company and you keep each other company. So thank you kindly. Of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. Yay. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to find here on YouTube. Also, keep in mind, during the news segment, if there's anything that catches your eye in the news, hang on, swing on over to thegaminggang.com. You will find a news piece. It's got all the links you need. So those are always up prior to, okay, I try to always have them up nowadays prior to the show. So if something catches your eye, you can learn more about it over on thegaminggang.com. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. And of course, subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. And if you do ring the bell, be sure to mark all notifications, because that way you'll be informed not only when the Discord stream, when the dispatch, there's a little tiny bug flying around and it keeps like zipping past me. You probably aren't seeing it in the camera, and it is like so distracting. It's almost like it's dive bombing me. So if you ring that bell, it'll notify you not only when the dispatch streams live, it'll also inform you when I share other videos, such as my upcoming Kickstarter previews, as well as my recent review of the Adventures Dark and Deep Core Bestiary from BRW Games. All right, enjoy all the rest of the week. The weekend ahead, I will be back on Tuesday. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks for watching. And as always, I hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.